Today, I'm going to show you when the best time to do cardio is. We're going to look at things like fasted cardio, whether you should do cardio before or after your strength training, what happens if you do your cardio at the end of the day, and plenty more. So let's get started. Hey, this is Colin DeWaay. If you like this kind of content about getting in shape and even doing so while eating the foods you love, then make sure you subscribe and click on that bell notification so you don't miss anything. So I want to start with fasted cardio because it's quite frequently thought of as the best time to do cardio. And the reason for this is there's actually evidence that shows you burn more fat during the cardio exercise when fasted versus non-fasted. And you know what? I'm not even going to argue that. You will burn more fat during your cardio if you are fasted. However, that does not necessarily mean that you're gonna burn more fat as a whole. We have to look at the whole picture. And in studies that looked at actual loss of body fat when calories and exercise were equated, there was no difference in fat loss. So when your total calories consumed are the same, this extra fat loss you see during the cardio is compensated by burning less fat later in the day, and the net difference is zero. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with fasted cardio, and there might even be some benefits for you. And some will argue and say, hey, I just know when I do fasted cardio, I see better results. But the first question I'll ask them is, how many calories were you consuming when you were doing that? And most of the time they come back and say, I have no idea. So what can happen if you're not paying attention to your nutrition is by doing fasted cardio, instead of waking up and possibly eating a meal like you normally would, now you go to the gym, you're doing cardio, that first meal now gets delayed, and because of that, now you consume less total calories and therefore see better results. I also think fasted cardio is different depending on the type of cardio, whether you're doing more high intensity type of cardio or lower intensity cardio, especially just regular walking. That's gonna be a lot easier to handle when you're not fed, whereas if you're trying to strength train or do more higher intensity workouts, going in without any energy supply, which that's what calories are, it's energy supply, can make it much more difficult to get through your session. But of course, there's always individuality. And while I think the majority of people tend to perform better in a fed state, some people just tend to feel better and perform better fasted. And if that's you, great. Whatever you like and help you the most is totally fine. You also have to look at whether a certain style makes you more or less hungry, especially if you have certain times of the day where you tend to be more hungry. Working with or against that can make a difference in how much you end up consuming, especially if you're overly hungry and overdo it. Obviously, it's going to be harder to see results. So if you're not typically very hungry in the morning and you can perform well and you go into it fasted and you can save up more calories for later in the day when you are hungry, then great. But if it makes you more hungry now later in the day, you're going to have a harder time. So we can't just look at what we do for cardio. We always have to look at everything, including the rest of your exercise as well as your nutrition. So let's say you're not going to do fasted cardio now. That's not a plan that works well for you, and you like to do your cardio around your strength training so you can just go to the gym, get it all done, and not have to worry about it at a different time of the day. Well, what's better, doing the cardio before training or after your training? And in my personal opinion, you should do your cardio after your strength training, because strength training is way more powerful and way more beneficial for fat loss, body composition. So you want to prioritize having the most energy that you can to perform well during your training. So if something's going to suffer a little bit, I'd rather have the cardio suffer, assuming we're looking at fat loss or body composition in general. Now, in terms of what I would consider to be more optimal, honestly, splitting up your training and your cardio would probably be better, just because you're going to be able to perform better during your cardio if you have more energy, whether that means doing your cardio on rest days where you're not going in for training, or splitting up your training and your cardio sessions, maybe one in the morning and one in the evening, so you have a meal in between to kind of refeed. That's probably going to be a bit better, but is that necessarily realistic or something you want to do? Going back to the gym twice per day is certainly something I don't want to do, but if you want to get everything you can, this is probably the best way to do it. Keeping in mind, I do recommend at least one full rest day. Recovery is important. If you can't properly recover, you're not going to get the results you want. And if you're just going all the time and never allowing your body to back off and recover, it's just, in my opinion, not a great plan. That doesn't mean that nobody's ever gotten good results going every single day. Of course that happens, but don't be afraid to rest. A lot of what makes the most sense for you too is your own personal schedule through other things in your life like work and home life, your personality and what you enjoy. And you need to factor these things, because no matter what what's most optimal or is the best. It doesn't really matter if you can't stick with it. And if you keep trying to schedule it in during a time where you just can't get it in, say for instance, you always leave it to the end of the day, and then the end of the day comes and you're tired from a long day and you tend to skip out on your cardio all the time, well then saving it for the end of the day is probably not a great plan. When I give out cardio numbers for my clients, I almost always just say, here's the amount of cardio I want you to do for the week. You can split it up however you want as long as it gets done. I don't care if you do more shorter sessions, bigger sessions, however you want to do it's fine. But then sometimes it'll be a struggle because you keep putting it off and putting it off, and then you get to the end of the week and you have all your cardio to do in one day, and it just feels like, well, I'm never gonna get it all done, so why do anything? And then you end up not getting any cardio done. So figure out what works best for you, your schedule, when you're most likely to get it done, and work with that. A lot of people do really well just getting up, getting it done early, getting it out of the way so you don't have to think about it or worry about it anymore. Other people do it better during the middle of the day. Some people do better late at night. Personally, I split it up pretty evenly between all my strength training sessions. Even when I did my prep a couple years back and my cardio got to like extreme levels by the end, I was doing like 5 or 6 hours of more traditional cardio like incline walking on a treadmill and a lot of stationary bike. And then I was also doing regular walking about 6 hours a week as well. I was doing 5 days of training. I split up that 5 or 6 hours evenly at the end of all my training sessions, which meant I was at the gym for a long time, training for an hour and a half and then doing an hour of cardio. But I had a goal in mind and I wanted to get it done, and I didn't want to have to go in on my rest days. I'd rather rest on my 2 days off rather than go back to the gym. So that's what worked best for me. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's best for you. And now, even though I'm only doing 30-40 minutes of cardio a week, I still split that up, but now it's only about 10 minutes per session, about 4 days per week. The other thing with doing cardio at night, it may help or hinder your sleep, and sleep is very important. So if you do cardio at the end of the day and it makes you really tired, you come home and you just crash, that might be actually very helpful for you. But if you do it and then you come home and you're wired and you can't fall asleep, then it's probably not a great idea for you. As you've probably figured out by now though, from a physiological standpoint, it does not matter when you do your cardio when everything else is equated, meaning your strength training, your total amount of cardio, and your total nutrition. So it comes down to what's best for your schedule, your preferences, and what you'll actually do. All that being said, you're probably wondering, how much cardio should I be doing to lose fat, especially belly fat? So if you want to know the answer to that question, make sure you check out this top video next. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you in that other video.